Today, we're going to talk about Red Rising by Pierce Brown and why it works for me, when in reality, I don't really think it should. There's a lot of good negative critique. I agree with a lot of it. It doesn't seem to break my immersion, which is interesting. And breaking my immersion is usually when I start getting really annoyed at negative things in books because it pulls me from the story, it makes it less enjoyable. I agree with a lot of the negative critique. I just didn't notice it while reading it. And then there are just actively things it does that don't normally work for me in my reading experience, but doesn't seem to bother me here. So we're going to unpack that spoiler-free, because there will be a spoiler-filled live show discussion in the future. And if you're seeing this after that live show discussion, the link will be down in the description. But when this video goes live, I will not have that link yet because it hasn't happened yet. So that's what I do today, and I think it could be a useful review video for people who are wondering, should I pick this up or not? Because we do have the 6th book coming out this year, which is quite exciting. So yeah, like all my review videos, we're going to start at the top discussing my experience reading it, because I do think how you come to a book and what you're expecting from a book really tailors whether you're going to like it or not. And for me, both times I read this as a book that I wanted to help me escape. For me, I picked this up my first time. I'm about to go on a vacation, and I was like, this looks like it's quick. It looks like it has tropes that I'm used to. It's $2 for Kindle. Let's go. And I did read half of it on a plane, and it was incredibly tropey and wonderful. And this time, too, I've been trying to get back into physically reading for a few months now, and completely sucked me in, immersed me, even though I knew the broad strokes of what was going to happen because I did read it in 2018, so a long time ago. But I generally remembered most of what would happen on this reread. So there weren't like huge surprises. There were moments where I was like, I forget how we get out of this problem. But for the most part, it was just a very comfortable time. And I think that's the big thing is both times I came to this wanting a fun, escapist, immersive time. And there weren't enough negative things that I noticed that took away from how it gave me that experience, if that makes sense. So it's melodramatic, it's pulpy fun, it had a familiar narrative framework where I was just interested in how this main character was going to inevitably solve his way out of the many problems he was put into. So it wasn't groundbreaking, but it was exactly what I wanted and done in a very tight way. It's a pretty short book for the amount of time it spans, for the amount of stuff that happens, but I do think that leads to why it does have some negative things for other people, but for me, for what I wanted this book to do, it knew the assignment and it met me where I was. But now we're going to get into I have 5 things that people negatively talk about this book about. I'm going to talk about why I agree with those things and also why it probably didn't matter to me. That's how I'm kind of breaking this up. So the first one is writing style. This is a first-person present tense book, which is a deal breaker for a lot of people, especially with Daryl, who is a melodramatic boy. And he is like a young man in this. Like, he's 16. He does have to be older than normal because he's a red in society, so they have to grow up fast. Like, they marry them off at 13 or 14. They are used as the backbone of society to build the infrastructure to, in his case, mine the dangerous helium stores and be underneath the surface of Mars. So he's young, but he's older than our 16-year-old, but he's still so melodramatic. He reminds me of me listening to corny, dark songs in teenage years, being like, yeah, that line was so deep. It's that type of thing. And I didn't mind that here. I remember reading the prologue the second time around and being like, oh, this sets it up. This totally sets up exactly the type of experience we're about to get into. And right away, I just knew mentally, don't take this seriously. Because if I take it seriously, there are so many holes in the world building and plot, and also, then it would be very pretentious. Because there are so many quotes and lines you could pull from this book that I'm just like, Daryl, is it that serious? Who talks like that? And that's a thing. And yes, we're in a different world with different cultures, so people talk differently. It's not our world. But at the same time, it's just... It's melodramatic, it truly is, and I do like drama, especially when I want to escape. That is a thing for me that works. So, if that isn't a thing for you, if you roll your eyes, that's going to be a problem for the book, and I totally get it, because it's first person, present tense, but it's a very straightforward, simplistic prose style. It's really not going to pull you out of the story. It's not going to make you be like, oh yeah, I want to write these quotes down and examine them later. At least not in this first book, in my opinion. It's serviceable. It gets the job done, it keeps the plot rolling, which I do think is a pro for the writing style when it comes to wanting an escapist read for me. I think that's harder for me to defend is the plot motivations of this story. They are incredibly lazy. And they're not lazy in a way that I find satisfying, but they're lazy in a way that they've been used so many times, so it does lean into the whole, like, comfortable, easy buy-in to certain situations. Like, okay, we're at least getting the ball rolling. Do I wish we'd use something that was a little less tropey in a negative way? Sure, but at least, like, okay, quick and dirty. This world is dark. Okay, I get why this character's joining the rebellion. Like, that's in the beginning of this book, in the first part. There's a trope used that people generally always dislike. I'm pretty sure it's mentioned on the back of the book, but I also said this is a spoiler-free review, so I won't talk about it specifically. But I'm sure if you have been apprehensive about this book, you know what I'm talking about. It's lazy how we motivate Daryl into the rebellion. Because, you know, this story, we got this guy who is a red, and he's going to infiltrate the Golds. That's the whole point. And the motivation behind how he gets to be in the rebellion and why he does what he does, it's lazy. And it's lazy, I think, especially because the characterization in this book is lazy. And these are all things that should make me not like the book. I am someone who likes characterization in stories. Most of my favorite books have messy, well fleshed out characters that I love. But I would say in this first book, characterization is fairly shallow. It's shallow for every character. A lot of reviews will highlight how shallow the female characters are. They are probably particularly shallow, but I would say everyone besides Daryl is characterized by the archetype they hold in the story, or by some quirks that they have, or by something that they suffer from. And I will say the female characters suffer the most in this story. If you are exhausted by patriarchy, if you are exhausted by tropes where men are motivated by the women in their lives being harmed, or tortured, killed, this has more of that. It's lazy. It's very tried and true lazy. I do think it makes it so it read quick for me, because it's like, yeah, I've seen this story before. This is not groundbreaking, but it keeps it moving. I don't think that means it should happen. I think there are more interesting, quick ways to do what they are doing at the beginning of this story, but it is what it is. But I do think a thing about the characterization, even though it is surface level, like people are sometimes just defined by, like, what they're wearing, or their nicknames, or the bad jokes they make. Like, there's really nothing that makes any one of these characters fleshed out in this first book. That said, they are actually very well coded to archetypes I am used to in many movies that I've seen. And so, that said, if I'm just trying to have a book that is a quick, easy, consumable time, I don't have to work very hard to visualize these people. I am, as a reader, bringing in more to these characters than the page is giving these characters, because I have seen these types of people on TV, in different books. Like, these are tried and true archetypes of characters I've seen before. So I think partially why this lack of characterization didn't fail me is because I was bringing a lot to the page. And that's the thing I think about a lot when I'm buddy reading with friends, and some people are like, oh, I really liked this character that, like, I thought was, like, the dullest thing I've ever seen. And I realize, oh, they're bringing a lot to this character from their own experiences and other stories that they love that I don't have experience with and I wasn't bringing to the character. So, like, a character is two halves. It's the author bringing it to you, and then you bringing that character to life in your imagination. And sometimes the author does a really good job at making a lot of people bring that character to life, but other times it's, hit or miss. And so maybe that's why it worked, though. Because these characters, we've all seen all of these characters before. Like, these are not unique people. And, like, Daryl specifically we have to talk about, because in theory, of all of the characters, he should be the most fleshed out, because it's his perspective, it's first person, and he's our main character. And in theory, I guess technically he is. But he's the most, like, Gary Stewed character in the universe. Like, truly, he's good at everything. Like, he's supposed to mean, like, the everyman's man, rebelling for society. No, he's just, even among the Reds, he is extraordinary. And then when he turns into a Gold, he becomes extraordinary. He's good at everything, either, like, naturally, or he trains his butt off and he becomes amazing at things. Like, it is implied that maybe he's not perfect, especially when he's, like, foiled to another character. But he's really good. He's really smart. He's really strong. He's handsome. He's got everything going for him. But that said, I can admit, he's definitely a chosen one who's, like, not working really hard for all of the things that make him successful, right? But I like it. Like, again, it's a comfortable trope. It's used in Ender's Game, in Dune. It's just, like, in this space opera space. This is normal. This is so normal to me. And also, it just meant that I'm like, okay, over the top, melodramatic man who's just way too good at everything. Here's our scenario. How are you getting out of it? And I found that fun enough that it didn't matter to me that this larger-than-life persona is not real, because he's really not. And then I also was distracted by the fact that we had all these problems he was trying to solve, because he has really no unique, or he has no agency. Daryl has no agency in this book. He is just moving from one place to the next and then handling the situation as it hits him. At the beginning of the book, he's just trying to live his best life. And then he gets put into the rebellion and he's like, I guess I'll go along with this plan. And then he's just in survival, I want to win mode. And at no point do you really feel that Daryl has any personal agency about anything he's doing, because not only do you have this lazy plot motivation at the start of the story, but it doesn't even really stick. Like, it's not even over the top to the point where it's like, because this horrible dark thing happened to him, he is all in. Like, not even really. Like, I don't feel like he really believes in the rebellion at this point in the story. I feel like he's just trying to get his footing. And I don't really know a lot about him. I know he likes to dance. I know he's good with his hands. Like, I know he wants to win. These are the things I know about Daryl. Like, he's just a melodramatic, dark, angsty boy he had a rough time at life, and he's given an opportunity to do great things, and I guess he's just gonna try his best. And I think that's honestly a fun protagonist to follow in a pulpy story like this. Like, it's melodramatic, it's pulpy, he's serviceable. He is not groundbreaking of a character. If this was a movie, it would be an average sci-fi flick, but it would be a really fun time and I would have had a blast. You know, like, that's how Daryl feels, which is why I just think characterization is such a weak part of this first book in the series. But it didn't negatively affect my experience because, again, I was just enjoying watching this all play out, because the biggest problem with this book, and again, I can't disagree with it, is this is almost all tell, no show. Which, it's not like the best way to describe these two types of books. You have the very flowery, descriptive, atmospheric books, or the books that show you every scene in a room and really paint a picture, that keep you in all of the little moments. Then you have books that people call telling, where they don't really describe the scene or interactions. And I do think sometimes those distinctions aren't very helpful. But in this case, this book is just a sequence of montages. Like that's how I can best describe it. Every part is just a montage getting you from point A to point B so you can see the highlights. This is just like after a sports game, the highlight reels with some punditry in the background telling you how we got here and what thought process went behind it and what happened while you weren't paying attention, sort of thing. And again, this kind of worked for me because I just wanted a tight story with the highlights. I didn't want to have the other stuff because the other stuff didn't matter to me because I don't really care about any of these characters. Like, I have people I hated and I had people I rooted for, but they weren't like people that I like was thriving on their interactions, which is also weird because if you're not new here, I thrive off of character interactions. And character interactions here were not like a big focus, and most of the interactions you're just like, oh no, when is betrayal going to happen? Because, oh no, because this is a book where you can't trust your circumstances. There was always going to be a change in plot direction, which is kind of the fun of the book. You're just here to be like, well, what's going to happen next? Like, we're in this outlandish scenario. Where are we going from here? How are we getting out of this? How can we top that? This is so ridiculous. How is this society run? Like, it's that type of thing that I'm watching, and it worked for me in this tell, don't show way because I wanted that tight experience. I didn't want to linger, and I don't even think it would have thrived in lingering in those places because we don't have characterization as a foundation here. So that's like my quick and dirty, these are negative things people talk about, which are valid, and if you don't like this book, that makes sense. But maybe why it did work for me. Which, you know, I'm kind of glad just because it is one of my highlights of the month was rereading this book because it still worked. It's super fun. And it does make me nervous because I wonder if there are times, because if you know the series, the first 3 books are one trilogy, and then we have a quartet that's going to be happening. And the quartet has not been as good for me as the original trilogy, and I think it's because it stops being as pulpy when you get to the quartet. The first 3 books are just so action-packed, plot-driven, bombastic time. And I think the later 4 books are trying to be more character-focused, are trying to be more ideas-focused. And I think it was just because I was unprepared for that switch because I was going to this series as my pulpy adventure time. And so I'm excited to get to Iron Gold and Dark Age again, knowing exactly what those books are trying to do and meeting it there, because I don't think as a reader last time I was meeting it where the books were, and seeing what does and doesn't work for me then. I don't think I'll do reviews for every book in this series, but I probably will do a review after the first arc and the second arc, as like should you reads or series updates for that, and there will be live shows, like I mentioned, for each of these books that will be spoiler filled. So lots of Red Rising probably on the channel this year, at least, 3 videos and 3 live shows probably. Let me know your thoughts down below. Spoiler free. If you are going to mention a spoiler, just write Red Rising spoiler, do a couple spaces, and we can talk about it there. But yeah, this is a book that I understand why it's so popular. I also understand equally why it doesn't work for people. But, that's just how books are. If you want to leave an emoji, leave something red. I feel like that makes sense. Or a wolf, because of the howlers and stuff like that. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.